on to Burkina Faso, guys. Actually, before I tell you what happened in Burkina Faso, I'd like to introduce you guys. For those who may not know, please meet Kemi Seba, a very popular Francophone activist who's making waves in so many French-speaking African countries as an advocate because he's fighting against the French oligarchy in Africa. Oligarchy means when a small group of people, in this case in France, are controlling the destinies of millions of people that are speaking French in Africa. Now, his biggest campaign has been against the CFA franc, that is the French currency, the French money, which is still the money that is being spent today by French-speaking African countries, which France is using to continue to colonize those African countries' economy.
Après l'indépendance de ces pays, c'est toujours la France qui gère la monnaie de ces anciennes colonies. Une situation unique.
French is literally controlling their economy. I've talked about how ridiculous this is a number of times on this show. For those who may not know, so many African countries that were colonized by France are still spending the money that they were spending before independence. This money is being printed in France. It is being regulated by France. They bring it to Africa. All these African countries don't have control over their own money, the money that they spend. Even France is no longer spending franc. Since January 1st, 1999, they now spend euro, but these African countries are still spending the CFA franc. First of all, let me tell you the meaning of this CFA franc. It means French colonies of Africa. This is what they are still carrying around. That's not the only issue. Their cash reserve is in France. They make them deposit 50% of the CFA franc reserve into the French central bank. This is just ridiculous.
Centrales de la zone franc doivent déposer 50% de leurs réserves de change à la Banque de France.
I remember in 2019, 8 of them were talking about finally withdrawing their reserve from France. Just imagine that. And on this show, I've also talked about how all the West African countries, both the French-speaking and the English-speaking West African countries, came together and decided to come up with their own currency so that it will foster trade amongst us. You know, we can all spend the same money like they're doing in Europe. You know, it really helps the euro to be really, really strong. The West African countries were also trying to come up with something that would strengthen their economy, strengthen their currency, but that was short-lived, guys. As soon as this African president started meeting, trying to come up with their own currency, France felt threatened, and they knew that a lot of Francophone countries in West Africa would have to do away with the CFA franc that they are able to control. Guess what? Suddenly in 2019, France announced that they are now coming up with a new currency for these West French-speaking African countries. Suddenly in 2019, France said they are now introducing a new currency for the Francophone West Africa. They called it the ECO. You see how they double-crossed West African countries? Can you guys believe the audacity of France? And suddenly, they divided these leaders of West Africa. 8 of the French-speaking African countries in West Africa who were ready to work with their English-speaking counterparts, they were enticed by the ECO. They told them that the ECO will be pegged to the euro and that it will be very strong and it will be backed by the French treasury. They also told them that the euro will guarantee the ECO's convertibility and stability, with the treasury remaining as guarantor for all 8 of this country. You know, the most ridiculous of French atrocities in Francophone Africa till today is the fact that so many of these Francophone African countries are still paying colonial taxes to France since independence. Yeah, let me tell you the story of how this whole thing started. You see, when the country of Guinea decided to be independent in 1958, the French were so upset that they had to leave, and so they decided to destroy everything that they built in Guinea, and everything that they could not take, they destroyed. They burned down so many buildings, including schools, public administration buildings. They were all crumbled. Cars were destroyed. Even books. Who destroys books? Medicines were destroyed. That's like the height of wickedness. Research Institute instruments were destroyed. Even tractors were crushed down. Horses and cows were killed. They were slaughtered. And the food that they had in warehouses were either burnt down or poisoned so that if anybody eats the food that they left behind, those people would die. This is what France did in Guinea when Guinea decided to become independent. They destroyed these things. They said these things were the benefits of colonization, and that since they were rejected by Africans, that they would take the benefit of colonization with them. Wow. Now, when the other French-speaking African countries heard about what happened in Guinea, they were afraid, so they negotiated to pay taxes to their colonial masters for these so-called benefits of colonization. Even though in some of these countries, these taxes for benefits of colonization were so high, it could be as high as 40% of the entire budget of their country Yet they started paying it, and they still pay it till today. Basically, my people, this is how France is using African money to develop their own country, while ensuring that these Francophone African countries are not completely free from their influence, because if France would no longer get all the money that it's getting from Africa, if these Francophone countries should become free.
On oublie seulement une chose, c'est qu'une grande partie de l'argent qui est dans notre porte-monnaie vient précisément de l'exploitation depuis des siècles de l'Afrique.
And since that time, so many Francophone leaders have tried to free themselves from the control of France. But if you've been observing, France would always sponsor a coup leader to take them out, and then they would install the coup leader that they can control. We've seen this happen over and over again in so many Francophone African countries, and it is still happening till today. If you've seen the video that I made about Thomas Sankara, this is exactly what happened in Burkina Faso when Thomas Sankara's friend in the army killed him and took over. And you guys know how Thomas Sankara was preaching about liberation of Africans. If you're yet to see all the great things that he did before he was killed, I'll put the link in the description, the video that I made about him that time. He really tried to get Burkina Faso to be self-sufficient, and they were doing it. They were making their own clothes, they were making their own food, everything, and then of course France took him out. We also saw a similar thing happen in Togo with Nyasigbe the father. So this is why, unlike the English-speaking part of Africa, so many of the presidents in the Francophone part of Africa, they usually overstay. They overstay even for decades, as long as they have the backing of France and do whatever France wants them to do until France gets tired of them, and then they take them out. So that's why in a place like Togo, for example, Nyasigbe was president for 38 years after killing Sylvanus Olympio, the man that wanted Togo to be completely independent from France. And then when Nyasigbe died after 38 years in power, his son took over, and he's been president since then. That was 2005, 16 years ago. So father and son have been president in Togo for more than 50 years now. That's just insane. Sometimes we, the English-speaking part of Africa, we say, what are the people of Togo doing? What are they looking at? How can they allow father and son for more than 50 years? But to be honest with you, when these presidents have the backing of France, it's really hard for the people to kick them out. So back to Kemi Seba, enough of my preachings. This man is 39 years old. He will be 40 next month. Happy birthday in advance, my brother. Even though he was born in France, both his parents were from Benin Republic, and he has dedicated his life to fighting for Francophone Africa and the Caribbean, as well as the freedom of black people in general, to be truly independent of France oligarchy, especially the currency that they are spending, the CFA franc, or the upcoming French currency, the ECO, that they wanted to introduce to West Africa. And he's also campaigning for an end to French military presence in the Sahel, Africa. So last month, he organized a rally in Burkina Faso, and he flew in for the rally. But on his way to the venue of the rally, that's in Bobo Dioulasso, he was arrested. His passport was seized. They detained him overnight, and then they deported him to his home country, Benin, where he lives now. Even though he was born in France, he has moved back to Benin Republic. Somebody in France has spoken to the leaders of Burkina Faso to stop Kemi. But if you know him, he doesn't give up, and that's what we love about him. You know, he's determined to see French Africa become free. I wish that more people would stand up like he's doing, risking his life basically, because France knows his campaign. And if you speak French, you would find more of his videos on YouTube. He's also on all social media platforms. If you speak French, you would be able to understand him. And what I love about him is the fact that he's not just fighting for his country, Benin Republic, he's fighting for all of Francophone Africa as well as the Caribbean. I really look forward to the day that we can celebrate victory with Kemi, and we'll keep you guys posted about his campaigns and the things that he's doing in different parts of Africa. You guys know I don't know much. Guess what? I'm just keeping it real.